very pleasant good morning and welcome to the Nurses Leaders Talk Show. I am your host, Persina Delaveau, and today we have a group of young student nurses in with us, and they will be discussing the topic bullying in the workplace, how to effectively deal with bullying in the workplace. So everybody just pay attention, listen in. We have student nurse Johnson. She's going to start it off with giving us the definition of bullying. Student nurse Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Delaveau. So I just want to start off by saying that everyone should have the right to a workplace free from bullying. Bullying at the workplace happens when a group of people repeatedly behave unreasonable towards another worker or a group of workers. This behavior creates a risk to health and safety. Now, examples of bullying in the workplace may include behaving aggressively toward one another, teasing or playing practical jokes, excluding one worker from work-related events, or just unreasonable demands. Back to you.
And now we will have student nurse Nemo, and she is going to talk about how to handle workplace bullying.
My name is student nurse Nemo, and I will be reporting on how bullying can be handled by nurse leaders and nurse managers in healthcare facilities. I will also be talking about how bullying can be handled by nurses, meaning the colleagues of the person involved in the incident. Also, how the victim themselves can deal with the bullying incident. So as we know, bullying is not uncommon in healthcare facilities, and it can lead to staff shortages. With that being said, nurse leaders and nurse managers must be able to come up with appropriate methods and strategies that can combat this problem. So before a bullying incident has occurred, nurse leaders and nurse managers must educate persons on the seriousness of bullying. They also should provide workplace policies that will deal with bullying incidents. And finally, nurse leaders and nurse managers must encourage all persons to report any bullying incidents. So, after a bullying incident has occurred, nurse leaders and nurse managers must act promptly and with confidentiality. They also should realize the seriousness of the situation. Nurse leaders and nurse managers must be unbiased and fair when dealing with persons involved in the bullying incident. They also must be able to communicate the process and outcome of the bullying incident, which means that they should inform the parties involved in the bullying incident how long the process will take and what will be the expected outcome. Also, nurse managers and nurse leaders must keep into account what exactly happened with the bullying incident, which means that who was involved, when did it happen, and what was the actual outcome of the situation. Nurse leaders and nurse managers must also be able to remain neutral when dealing with the bullying incident. Now on to how nurses can handle bullying in the workplace. So as a nurse, you can handle the bullying situation by being a support system for your colleague, which means that when your colleague needs a listening ear, you are there to listen to their concerns and to their feelings of when a bullying incident has happened to them. You also can assist them by going with them to the HR department to report any incidents of bullying, as well as if you have seen any bullying incident that has occurred, then you can also report this to an HR manager or any supervisor on what has happened. And as for the victim can keep a diary or record of when the bullying incidences have occurred and how often, and also any other details that may be necessary, as well as the victim should keep any memos or emails from the person that has been doing the bullying to keep into account what exactly was going on. The victim should not retaliate except when reporting the bullying incidences. So thank you. On to LaShawn.
Up next, we have student nurse Fortulin, and she is going to talk about evidence-based practices. Fortulin?
Good afternoon, this is student nurse Fortulin. Research and evidence-based practice have examined various ways to combat workplace bullying. Today, we'll see how bullying has been handled successfully in the past. Ethical infrastructure was used in one study where formal and informal systems was used to enable ethical behavior and disable unethical behavior. Ethical infrastructure communicates as well as reinforces ethical principles within an organization. Formal ethical systems are those that are observable, and they include policies, code of conduct, like the Nurses' Code of Ethics, formal training, and formal surveillance, just to name a few. Informal ethical systems, on the other hand, are implicit messages and directions about how to behave. These are learned through conversation, observation, and socialization, and they may include beliefs, values, and basically the culture of that organization and how they deal with workplace bullying. In the article, the presence of policies, recurrent communications to build an anti-bullying culture within the organization, training in conflict management for human resources, formal surveillance, use of formal sanctions like warnings given to a person who bullies another, and conflict management climate was used to measure the successful handling of workplace bullying. With the 216 organizations within the study, it was concluded that for bullying to be successfully handled, the implementation of both ethical infrastructure must be implemented. What does this mean, you may ask? Well, both formal and informal ethical infrastructure forms must be implemented. This means that formal systems like policies, code of conduct, formal surveillance, and formal sanctions must be implemented, as well as the awareness of values, beliefs, and the culture of a specific organization must be observed. In a paper by a group of Colorado nurses, they mentioned that ethics of care approach can be used by leaders where they are proficient in communication, competent in coaching, staff development, maintaining high standards of conduct, and ensuring that there is an environment of trust and mutual respect. Ethics of justice can also be an approach that can be used by different types of leadership styles, where fairness and protection of individual rights is promoted. This article concluded that justice should be distributed within a caring framework. We see that from both articles, ethics plays a major part in workplace bullying.
Good day, staff. So this meeting was called to address the conflict that occurred on the 18th of March, 2022 on Female Medical 2 Ward. So each of you will have the opportunity to voice your concerns and explain why things escalated the way they did. In the order of the names that I call, you will unmute your mic and speak, during which everybody else will respect the person that's speaking. And when it's your turn, the person will do the same. So there'll be a general discussion afterwards.
So first we will be hearing from Simone, which is RN1, and then Julia, which is the second RN, and Lashan will be the last person to speak, and then I will address the situation. Go ahead, Simone.
Okay, good night. So we were having a normal shift, preparing for our 10 a.m. medication for our patients when LaShawn, the graduate nurse, walked up to me and said she wanted to have a talk with me when we were done. So after we got done, she approached me again and asked if I was ready. So when I spoke with her, she said she would rather do it in private. So I said, okay, we can go in the tea room. So when we got in the tea room, she said she didn't like what I posted on my status. So I asked her what my status has to do with her. So she said she felt like it was a slick post aimed at her. And I proceeded to tell her that it was just a general post and I can't help if the shoe fits. Then I left the room.
Well, it was a normal shift, like Simone said. I saw LaShawn, the graduate nurse, approach Simone on 2 occasions, and she needed to talk. They went in the tea room for a minute. Simone came back out, then LaShawn after. Afterwards, LaShawn came to me and said, "Did I see what Simone posted on her status this morning?" So I'm not going to lie. I laughed and said no. She asked, "What was so funny?" I said nothing. I told her I wasn't getting nobody business.
Now, what Simone and Julia said were true. So I'm just going to tell what I saw on Simone's status. So it was a picture with words that said, "When you come to work and realize the slow staff working today." And the picture was depicting someone jumping in the front of a car to end their life. And at the bottom of the status, she wrote, "Me walking into female medical 2 this morning and living this nightmare," with crying face emojis. So, you could see where I thought it was about me because I'm the new person. From what I observed, Simone and Julia, and they are very close. And it was just the three of us. So it was easy to assume. So after Simone dismissed me and Julia laughed in my face, I walked up to the both of them and I said, "Since I'm the slow one, y'all should be able to take care of my patients. Y'all got this." And I left and I went to my car. But even before all this, they would be throwing jazz. And I even heard Simone ask Julia one day if we were this slow when we first graduated. Because ain't no way, and so you can understand why I assume.
Wow. Wow, ladies. So, first of all, Simone, is it true what you posted on your status? And if so, you and Julia, please apologize to LaShawn right now.
Me? What I apologize for? I ain't do nothing.
I'm sorry, but we were working at a much faster pace when we graduated. So,
Excuse me, I said an apology, both of you.
All right, sorry.
Sorry, LaShawn.
I really expected better from my registered nurses. This graduate nurse is clearly having a hard time adjusting from a student to a registered nurse. You guys are supposed to set an example for her. It's your job to assist her as best as possible. Both of you were once in her shoes, so y'all should be able to empathize with her. Anyway, y'all please behave because we are already short staff and I don't need to be short any more nurses. LaShawn, the next time you leave your patients unattended, you will be written up because you could have come to me instead, but you chose to go and sit in your car and leave your patients unattended for a whole 2 hours. That was very unethical of you as a nurse, regardless of your feelings.
I understand. I do apologize, sister. I was just really frustrated.
There is no excuse for your actions, ma'am. But anyway, does anybody else have anything else to add?
No, that's fine.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night, sister.
Okay, good night.
Hi, According to leadership roles and management functions in nursing, if the conflict is managed poorly, the conflict issues frequently remain and may return later to cause more conflict. The previous skit was an example of this, and here's why. The optimal goal in resolving conflict is to create a win-win situation for all of the parties involved. In the case of the skit, there was no win for either party. The sister/nurse in charge that addressed the RNs and graduate nurse was very vague. Here is a few ways she could have dealt with the situation to provide a better outcome. Managing a conflict effectively requires understanding its origin, and in the case of the scenario, the registered nurses had a problem with the pace of the graduate nurse. But instead of confronting and offering assistance, they chose to belittle her. There are a few things the nurse manager could have done to resolve this issue. So first, she could have demanded a more sincere apology from both parties that were clearly obtuse. She could have instituted sensitivity training because the RNs were clearly insensitive to the new graduate nurses, especially considering that they were supposed to be her mentors. She could have also instituted structural changes by transferring the graduate nurses to a different ward that would be able to facilitate her and make her feel more comfortable.
Wow, what a lively and informative talk show today. We want to thank all of the student nurses for being on the show with us today. Until next time, I'm Procina Delaveau.